Welcome to the MSL 411, a podcast designed to equip both aspiring and experienced MSLs with the resources they need to level up their career toolkit. The heart of this podcast is to take the same industry knowledge and advice that we share with our own candidates and make it available and accessible to anyone looking for answers. So if you have questions, you've come to the right place. We're here to give you the 411. And without further ado, let's dive right in. Hi, and welcome back to MSL 411. We have a really great episode for you today. If you joined us on our last episode, you heard us talking about how to effectively engage people in a networking sense, whether that be MSLs or recruiters. And this episode, we're going to be taking that a little step further and talking about effective communication in an informational interview. So your networking attempts have paid off. You've managed to set up a call with that MSL that you wanted to reach out to and connect with. You've got the opportunity to pick their brain about their company or their role as an MSL or whatever the case may be. Now it's time to prepare for your call. So Ashley, kick us off here. What kind of things should be going through this person's mind right now as they're preparing for this call? What should they be thinking about?
Well, kudos to you for preparing for the call, not winging it. Love that.
Yes.
Think about replacing small talk with meaningful conversation. You're still going to have small talk, but it's going to be about something that's meaningful. So if you've researched them in advance, you are talking about things that you know about them rather than, oh, how's the weather where you are?
Yeah.
Oh, how's the weather where you are? Oh, I see that you are in Denver, Colorado, how long have you lived there? That's a little bit more of a meaningful conversation and meaningful way to approach that initial small talk that everybody does in the beginning. And whether it's networking over the phone, maybe you guys are having a video call, or maybe it's even in-person networking. Maybe you're at a local industry event. You are at a conference, something like that, finding out a little bit more about the interests and background of the people that you intend to network with. You can steer that conversation and converse with them with the goal of finding commonalities on a more personal front, but then also on a professional front as well. And so you're really kind of taking charge of the conversation, and it's your responsibility to do that. They're doing a favor for you. And so that would be first step out the gate, is think about what meaningful small talk can look like. And then, find out what they're passionate about. Maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's a personal interest. There's lots of MSLs that we know that do what they do because of a personal connection. Maybe it's a family member, a child that has been plagued by the area of science that they're working in, and that's their passion, that's their driver. Maybe they're passionate about their hobbies outside of work as well. Figure out what those things are. And if in these conversations you uncover something that is really neat, maybe it is somebody who's got a really interesting educational background, or maybe they're working on something where you might have a connection to that in some way. Offer to be a wingman. Offer to make introductions. Maybe you have something valuable that you can offer them, or maybe you're in an in-person networking environment, and it's a little bit of a different conversation, and somebody jumps in and hops into that conversation at a conference, let's say. Share that interesting fact that you learned in that meaningful small talk conversation to the person, and really join them into that conversation in an effective way and make that introduction, be that wingman. That I think really helps you go a step further to show that connection and leaves a lasting impression in their mind in that kind of network communication.
And I think it shows that you're a relationship builder, which is key in what an MSL does day in, day out in their role. It shows that you know how to keep conversation going, the same way you're digging in and researching that person, you would do that with a KOL. So it shows that you are the right person for this kind of job, I think. So as an MSL that you're connecting with, it maybe shows that you have the potential, that it makes it worth them being in that mentor type relationship with. So I think that's fantastic. I think also identifying ahead of time, what is a type of question that maybe only this one person can answer. You need to know, of course, the information that's more figure outable, and then not waste their time by asking something that you could have found with your own research pretty easily. But maybe, thinking about, I really want to know about this, and this person would be a great source of information on that, because chances are that this person is going to love to share what they know about that topic if they're an expert in that area or have a really cool experience in this one particular thing. It might be something that they're very excited to share that information with and pass that information along. So maybe identifying what sets this person apart from all of their MSLs that I could dig in a little bit and ask them a little bit about that
Yeah.
you can't really find from a Google search.
Yeah.
It's something that they can really answer and expound on. So that kind of takes away all the low effort questions. When you're framing your outreach and your conversation in that mind, it removes all the low effort generic outreach questions. Like you said, you don't want to start by saying, well, how's the weather? You really want to go in and pack a punch right out of the gate and get that conversation started.
Yeah.
I would say, the same way we would advise someone in an interview to really have your research done ahead of time, know who you're talking to and what they stand for, that type of thing.
Yeah.
It demonstrates that you are a researcher as opposed to those low effort questions that demonstrate, well, maybe you're not cut out for this role because you're not really a person who researches and studies and comes in with information that comes in prepared.
Yeah.
So you want to show that you're the type of person who puts in the prep work. These are essential skills. They signal to a potential contact that you're serious if you put in that work versus the low impact questions, low effort questions that signal that you're not serious and you don't have the skills or mindset that are essential to becoming an MSL.
Yeah.
We can relate a lot of this to like the dating world. So, if you've been married for 20 or 30 years, sorry, but for those of you who have experienced dating in that scene in the past decade or so, especially as things have gone online, you know how hard it is to start a meaningful relationship or even spend an hour with someone if they don't put forth any effort, they don't come prepared, they don't ask you ahead of time what your interests are, or anything like that. Even maybe sharing some of your passions and saying, I see that you live in Colorado. Oh my gosh, well, I love to hike and they have some of the greatest trails. And do you do any hiking in your spare time there? I mean, even something like that where you don't know a lot about this person other than where they live, but you have something to offer. It may start a conversation that you weren't expecting, but it's just finding little ways you can dig in and show that you've done a little bit of research and that you're the type of person that puts effort in before you step into a conversation with somebody, because that's what MSLs do. And that's what you do in an interview situation. And that's what you do when you reach out to MSLs. My gosh, come prepared and make best use of their time. So I would say those are some things to keep in mind, ways to kind of approach this conversation before you get there, be in the right mindset and not waste their time. But if you have 30 minutes with them, if you have an hour-long coffee break or a virtual call, you just want to make sure that you're asking them meaningful questions, not stuff that you could find out easily on the internet, because that's not a good use of their time. And then showing that you have done your research ahead of time as much as you can. So those are my suggestions, but
Well, and to your point about asking them a question that only they can answer, maybe it's not necessarily only them, but they are, if you're talking to, let's say, an MSL in oncology at AstraZeneca in Texas. They're the only ones who can give you the perspective of what it's like to be an MSL at that company in that therapeutic area covering that territory. So asking questions like that, maybe you decided to reach out to them because you're interviewing at AZ, maybe that's the company you're looking at, and you want to learn more about what is it like to be an MSL within this particular organization, leading with thoughtful questions like that, or asking, what is that your experience with access been like, in covering this particular geography? Maybe that's what you're trying to understand, figuring out what is that question that only they can answer is going to, I think, make them feel like this is a worthwhile use of their time, because there isn't really anybody else who could answer that question the way that you could. So I think it gives them a sense of value to the conversation, and that you were expecting them to answer your connection request and came prepared for it. So yeah, great points. And then just lastly, to wrap that all up, is follow up to maintain those connections, maintain those relationships. It's certainly easy to do online. If it's somebody that you're maybe meeting in person or networking with, connect with them right away on LinkedIn. And it's so easy to keep in touch with people. There's really like no excuse not to. And then, identify what makes sense for the relationship. Maybe mark it on your calendar. Maybe you guys connect twice a year, once a quarter, whatever the case is, to connect with them. If you enter into a more mentoring relationship, then maybe more frequent connection, but identifying those things, birthdays, updates, posts on LinkedIn, create those great kind of in between touch points that we talked about in the last episode, but figuring out what makes sense for us to have a 15-minute catch-up call twice a year, whatever the case is, just to keep in touch. You never know where you might work with somebody again in the future, what that relationship will look like. And it's important to not only establish relationships and build your network, but maintain it as
Absolutely.
well. So we hope that this has been some helpful nuggets for you guys, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to share the link, let your friends know, and of course, connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you want more information on today's topic, please feel free to reach out. Be sure to check back soon as we continue to explore the topics that matter most to you in medical affairs.